Hello, boys and girls. It's story time again. And today we're going to read about a fun story, and it's about a sea serpent and how helpful he is on a journey that some people take on the ocean. So it's make believe. It didn't really happen. And it's called Cyrus the Unsinkable Sea Serpent. Once upon a time, there was a giant sea serpent named Cyrus. Even though he was a horrible-looking monster, he wasn't the least bit fierce. All he ever did was wander about in the sea with no idea of where he was going. "I'm tired of wandering," said Cyrus one day. "I wish there was something more exciting to do. I'd like to have some fun for a while." "If you want to have some fun," said the shark, "why don't you go out and wreck a ship, then eat all the passengers?" "Oh, no," said Cyrus. "I couldn't do the awful thing like that. Besides, I never eat people. I only eat sardines." "You've got no more spunk than a jellyfish," sneered the shark. "You're nothing but a big sissy." Cyrus had never been called a sissy, and it made him furious. "I could be as rough and tough as anyone," he grumbled. "And if I have to wreck a ship to prove it, that's what I'll do. I might even have fun." The serpent raised his head high out of the water to search for a ship. But as far as he could see, there wasn't one sailing. "I know where I can find ships," he said. "Lots of them." He went cruising along the sea coast until he came to the harbor, and there, sure enough, were ships by the dozen, riding at anchor on the quiet water. "I'll just lay low," Cyrus decided. "Sooner or later, one of them will head out to sea. Then I'll have some fun." After a quick look around to make sure no one had seen him, the serpent slipped under the pier to hide in the pilings. Pretty soon there was a great commotion and confusion of voices as the crowd poured onto the pier. A ship was about to set sail, and Cyrus perked up. From all the hullabaloo, he learned that the ship was called the Primrose, and she was bound for a new land far across the sea. The passengers were all poor people who were going there to seek their fortunes. As the ship moved away from the pier, the crowd called out their last farewells. The booming voice of an old man split the air. "You're in for trouble," he bellowed. "You'll never make it. You'll run into the doldrums and be stranded forever, or a storm will take you under, or if a storm doesn't get you, the pirates will. You'll never make it, I say," the old scoundrel muttered. Cyrus, how could he be so mean? The old man had spoiled his fun. Cyrus forgot all about wrecking a ship. Now he was worried about the Primrose and all its passengers. "I'll never know what happened to them," he said. "Not unless I follow them. It's a long trip. But then I have nothing better to do." Without making a ripple, he ducked under the water to go gliding from the harbor on out to the sea. And after a half an hour behind the Primrose, he came up to the surface. Cyprus could catch up with the ship in no time, but he didn't want to scare anyone, so he went churning along at a slow, steady pace, careful to keep a distance. The first day out all went well. With a lively breeze behind her, the Primrose sailed merrily along over the rippling sea without a cloud in the sky, and on to the night with a bright full moon to light the way. "So far so good," said Cyrus. "No storms, no pirates, and no doldrums, whatever they are." For 3 days the ship sailed along without the least bit of trouble. Then, on the 4th day, just before sunset, a great stillness settled over the sea. There wasn't a breath of breeze. The sails of the Primrose felt limp, and all at once she came to a stop. "Well, I'll be horn-wiggled," growled the captain. "We've run into the doldrums. We hit a dead calm." "What'll we do?" cried someone. "Wait her out and hope for a favorable winds." "How long will that be?" "No tellin'," said the captain. "Maybe a day, maybe a week, or even a month." "In a month we'd run out of food and water." "That we would," said the captain. "But right now we might as well get some sleep." Cyrus was not a bit sleepy, so he stayed up that night circling around the stranded ship, trying to figure out a way to help. At last he got an idea. "Of course," he explained. "That's very simple indeed." Quietly he slipped up close behind the primrose, then very gently began puffing at the sails, and slowly the ship started to move. Soon she was sailing along over the shimmering sea in a smooth, easy glide. He kept the ship going all through the night, and then in the rosy pink hours of the dawn, a stiff headwind caught the sails, rocking the primrose back on her keel. In an instant, the crew and the passengers were on deck with everyone shouting, "We're out of the doldrums! We're out of the doldrums!" "Hold on," said the captain. "We're out of the doldrums, but heading smack into a squall." Black clouds came tumbling over the horizon. There was a great rumble of thunder, and a roaring wind was churning up the sea. "All passengers below," ordered the captain. Then to his crew he roared, "Reef the tall sails, hail in the mizzer, tie down the jiggy, make it fast, lads." In 3 shakes and a jiffy, the sailors were up the riggings, pulling the sails, tightening up the bowlines and mainstays. And in half a shake, the captain and the crew popped down the hatch just as a giant wave crashed over the bow. A second wave swept over the deck, and the primrose was rocking and reeling. The waves kept coming, great towering waves, and the ship began to founder. Cyrus saw in a second that the ship could never last out the storm, and he came leaping out of the waves to the rescue. He reached the primrose just as she was heeling over and about to go down. In one desperate lunge, he flung his giant serpent body around her hull, and then gulped in air. He puffed himself up to a huge life preserver. Now Cyrus was unsinkable, and with a tight grip on the ship, he carried her high over the crest of the waves. That way he managed to keep the primrose afloat until the storm finally let up, and the winds died down to a whisper, and the sea had calmed down to a ripple. Once more shouts of joy echoed from the deck of the primrose. "It was a miracle," cried the captain. "A bloomin' miracle. I thought sure we were goners." "So did I," sighed the Serpent as he watched the ship sail away. Cyrus was much too weary and bed-ragged to go on, so he flopped down on the sea for a nap, and soon rocked to sleep by the gentle rolling waves. When the sea serpent awakened, the primrose was nowhere to be seen. "Oh well," he said, "I might as well forget about the ship. After all, I've done my bit." But then she still had a long ways to go, and there could be plenty of trouble ahead, all kinds of trouble. And away went Cyrus, charging full tilt over the sea to the west. He searched the sea for miles and miles to find nothing more than a pelican, and he was about to give up when he sighted a ship on the horizon. As he came closer, he discovered that this ship was flying a black flag. She was a pirate ship. On ahead, he spied the primrose. The pirates were chasing her and closing in fast. "Avast, ye rubblers!" roared the pirate captain. "Heave to, or we'll blast your tub to splinters." Get away, the captain of the Primrose rolled back, and he kept his ship going full sail. But there was no hope of outrunning the pirates, and in less than a minute they had caught up and pulled alongside. Then, to the sea serpent's horror, the pirates opened fire. 20 canyons exploded with a thundering boom, blasting the mast of the Primrose to splinters. The sail was blown to shreds, and the yard arms were tumbling down. The scurvy sea dogs, snarled the Serpent. I'll fix those rascals. I'll shiver their timbers, I will. Quick as a flash, he dove down into sea. Then he wheeled sharply. He shot straight up like a rocket, straight for the pirate's ship. The Serpent's hard head caught the ship square in the hull. Kerbom! And she cracked apart like a nutshell. The ship was wrecked, and so was Cyrus. He had knocked himself out. His eyes were spinning like pinwheels, and he sank below the waves as limp as an old shoestring. When he finally recovered and came to the surface, he was amazed to find nothing left of the pirate ship but bits and pieces. The pirates had scrambled aboard the fragments of hull, dazzled and bewildered, wondering what in the world had hit them. The crippled Primrose was drifting away to the south with the passengers and crew crowded together on the deck. The captain and the crew had seen the giant sea monster destroy the pirate ship with one mighty blow, and they feared their ship would be next. If the monster doesn't get us, muttered the captain, we're done for anyway. There's still a whale of a long way to go, and we can't move without sails. That old man was right, the one who had made such a noise at the dock the day they left. He predicted the voyage would end in disaster, remember? Who could forget him? Cyrus muttered to himself. He was right about the doldrums, the storm, and the pirates, but he didn't figure on me. I just might prove him wrong. The Serpent had slipped quietly up to the prow of the ship and was eyeing the anchor chain. Gripping the chain tightly in his jaw, he gave it a tug. He kept pulling until it was strung out to the full length, and all at once the ship lurched forward, bringing cries of terror from the people on board. It's the monster, the sea monster. He's stealing the anchor. No, he's pulling us. He's hauling us off this cave. He'll eat us alive. Hold it, roared the captain. How do you know but what he means to help? After all, if he hadn't wrecked the pirate ship, the guys would have split our gullets. And look, he's taking us west. If he keeps going, we'll hit land. So let's all cool down and enjoy the ride. Like a high-stepping steed hitched to a fancy carriage, Cyrus galloped over the sea, picking up speed as he went. Never had a sailing ship traveled at such a fast clip. The sea serpent was anxious to get the trip over with, and he kept the Primrose going full tilt night and day without a let-up. Finally, one morning, the lookout was shouting, "Land ho! Land ho!" And sure enough, looming over the horizon was a great stretch of land. At last the perilous journey was over. With one last burst of speed, Cyrus carried the Primrose up on the beach, leaving her high and dry. Then, with an enormous sigh of relief, he headed back out to sea. As he swam on his way, the captain and the crew and all the passengers were gathered on a huge rock, and they gave their sea serpent hero a roaring cheer. Being a hero is exciting, said Cyrus, but I've enough excitement to last for a while. What I need is a good long rest. Heading south, the giant Serpent wandered off into the Caribbean Sea. where he found a peaceful little island, and he settled down in the palm tree to sleep for a whole month. Cyprus was very tired for some reason or another. Well, it's not a true story, but it's interesting how he helped them get to where they were going. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.